A poker pro walked out of a Dublin hotel and was never seen again. No phone calls, no sightings, just silence. And he's not the only one. Online legends, million-dollar champions, gone without a trace. Some fled, some fell, some vanished into something darker. So what really happened to poker's missing stars? Brad Booth wasn't just a poker player. He was a symbol of the wild, untamed era of the poker boom. Nicknamed Yukon Brad, he became a high-stakes legend in Las Vegas, known as much for his audacious plays as his lifestyle that swung between extremes. On one televised hand, he shoved all in against Phil Ivey with just 4 high. That moment cemented his image. Fearless, unpredictable, and a little unhinged in the best possible way. But by the time July of the year 2020 rolled around, Booth's story had shifted from brash success to quiet despair. On July 13th, he told his roommate he was heading out to camp in the Nevada wilderness. He left the Grand Sierra Resort in Reno with barely enough supplies for a day or two off-grid. And then, nothing. For weeks, not a single soul heard from him. The poker world, once captivated by his exploits, now buzzed with worry. Booth, who once lived 18 months straight in a Bellagio suite, was suddenly missing without a trace. The disappearance wasn't entirely out of nowhere. Brad's fall from grace had been slow, painful, and public. Years earlier, he had been caught in the ultimate bet cheating scandal. Losing over $2 million, he would lose millions more chasing a comeback that never quite arrived. In a moment of raw honesty, he admitted publicly in 2012 that he couldn't repay a $28,000 debt to Doug Polk. That wasn't just a missed payment, it was a sign of how far things had fallen. Brad once played for Ferraris. Now he was grinding low-stakes games and wrestling with what he called a gambling sickness. When Brad vanished into the wilderness, many feared the worst. Rescue teams and volunteers scoured the Nevada backcountry. But 2 months later, there was a surprising update. His family released a short statement. Brad was alive, he was safe, and he had gone off-grid. On purpose. He had taken what he called a timeout. In a later interview, Brad revealed that his disappearance was a breaking point, an escape from the chaos that had consumed his life. He'd gone into the woods to reevaluate everything. It was not foul play, it was a desperate form of self-repair. Today, Brad Booth lives quietly in the Pacific Northwest, far from the spotlight and far from Bobby's room. He plays small games, slowly repays old debts, and tries, in his words, to be a better version of himself. His disappearance wasn't a mystery rooted in crime. It was the result of a man finally realizing he had to fold on his own terms. February 9th, 2019. It's a cold Saturday morning in Dublin. John Thruster Jonsson, a 41-year-old man from Iceland, steps out of the Bonington Hotel around 11 in the morning. He's in town for a poker tournament and a bit of sightseeing with his fiancée. A father of 4, John had traveled to Ireland for what was supposed to be a quick, light-hearted vacation. A nearby CCTV camera captures John walking past a nursing home down Swords Road. And then, nothing. He doesn't come back to the hotel. His phone goes silent. His bank cards are never used again. Jon Jonsson had disappeared, completely. What began as a poker holiday quickly spiraled into an international mystery. Jon's family flew in from Iceland. They plastered missing person posters across Dublin. The Irish Gardaí launched a full-scale search of nearby parks and waterways. But there were no clues. John had no criminal history, no enemies. He didn't know the city, and the silence from his digital footprint made things worse. No texts, no social media, no transactions. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, hope began to dim. The poker tournament continued without him, his empty seat serving as a haunting reminder of how suddenly everything can vanish. Years passed, still no answers. In 2023 and 2024, acting on tips, investigators searched Santry Domain Park with cadaver dogs. They combed through the lakes and dense woods, nothing turned up. But then, in 2025, a chilling new lead emerged. An anonymous tipster came forward, not to police, but to John's family. They claimed a hitman had mistakenly killed John, confusing him with someone else. Even more disturbing, 2 family members received this same story independently from different sources. According to the tip, the killer later confessed his mistake, but there was no proof, no name, no body. And officially, Gardaí still list John as a missing person, not a murder victim. Despite the uncertainty, John's family believes the tip. "I'm almost certain something happened," his brother David has said, urging police to treat the case as a murder. The heartache remains raw. John's fiancée still searches for answers, chasing every rumor that might bring closure. This wasn't just another poker player fading from the scene. Jon Jonsson's disappearance was, and still is, a real-life nightmare. A man goes for a walk in a foreign city and is never seen again. No goodbye, no closure, just an enduring silence that continues to haunt both his family and the poker world. In November of 2008, the World Series of Poker crowned a new champion. 22-year-old Peter Eastgate from Denmark sat under the lights of the main event final table and defeated Ivan Demidov to win over $9 million. At the time, he was the youngest world champion in World Series history. Quiet, unassuming, and analytical, Eastgate was not just a rising star, he was the next big thing. With sponsorships flooding in and televised appearances stacking up, Eastgate was living every poker player's dream. But beneath the calm exterior, he was crumbling. Eastgate never liked the spotlight. He admitted in interviews that he felt awkward in public and hated the way he sounded on television. And while the world celebrated his success, he was spiraling privately into sports betting, fast and hard. By mid-2010, just 2 years after his breakout win, Eastgate shocked the poker world. He announced that he was retiring. At only 24 years old, with a long and lucrative career ahead of him, he walked away. The reason soon came into focus. In a candid ESPN interview, Peter revealed that he had lost over $2 million on soccer betting. During the 2010 World Cup alone, he wagered $500,000 that Spain wouldn't win and watched in agony as Spain lifted the trophy. His emotional state had become dangerously tied to gambling outcomes. "I was a degenerate gambler," he said bluntly. "You cannot lose $2.2 million in sports betting unless you have a problem." On top of the financial losses, Eastgate was getting crushed in high-stakes online poker by a new generation of pros. The game he once dominated now made him feel powerless. Rather than spiral further, he made a radical decision. He quit. Cold turkey. To mark the moment, Eastgate auctioned off his World Series gold bracelet on eBay and donated the nearly $150,000 raised to UNICEF. Some speculated he was broke. Others believed he was disillusioned with poker, but Eastgate said it was symbolic, a clean break from the life that had consumed him. He reappeared briefly in 2012, cashing for over $200,000 in a World Series event. He even played the main event again in 2015, but the fire was gone. He later joked that anyone who saw him online should jump in the game because he didn't stand a chance anymore. The passion that had once fueled him had been replaced with peace. Peter Eastgate's disappearance wasn't fueled by scandal or tragedy. It was a quiet, deliberate decision to step back before the darkness overtook him completely. In an industry where most players don't know when to quit, Peter Eastgate did something radical. He walked away and never looked back.
Let me get to it here. So we have 7-9 of clubs, and this one's actually pretty interesting here. A very aggressive player raises in second position in full ring. And I toss in a call on the button because we're a little bit deep, and I haven't, and I just thought the blinds might come along once in a while. There's kind of a weak blind in there.
Before Twitch streams and solver tools, there was Dusty Schmidt, known online as Leverass. He wasn't flashy, and he wasn't chasing bracelets. Dusty was a grinder, and he earned that nickname by logging over 10 million hands of online poker, dominating mid to high stakes cash games with one of the highest win rates in the business. A former golf prodigy who once broke junior records held by Tiger Woods, Schmidt was forced to leave the sport after suffering a heart attack at just 23. In recovery, he discovered poker, and he turned it into a multi-million-dollar career. He became one of PokerStars' most successful regulars, earning supernova elite status and reportedly pulling in over $4 million in winnings. He was more than just a volume player. He wrote books like Treat Your Poker Like a Business and was known for his cool-headed, disciplined approach to the game. But success didn't last forever. As the online landscape got tougher in the mid-2010s, Dusty began to fade from view. He played less and focused more on family life. In 2014, he made a bizarre public offer. He'd pay $1 million to anyone who could beat him in a combined golf and poker challenge. The stunt made headlines, but also cost him his amateur golf status. By 2018, he was married and more focused on business ventures and parenting than chasing poker glory. Then, silence. Dusty Schmidt essentially disappeared from the poker conversation. No scandals, no drama, just an absence. That silence was broken in December of 2021 when PGA golfer Kevin Na posted an emotional tribute. Dusty Schmidt had died suddenly at age 40. The cause of death was not made public, but given his history of cardiac issues, many suspected it was his heart again. The poker world reacted with quiet shock. While he hadn't been the part of the conversation for years, those who remembered him spoke of his integrity, discipline, and kindness. Poker journalist Barry Carter tweeted that Dusty was a really lovely guy and that his passing was a tragic loss. Unlike some of the other names on this list, Dusty's disappearance wasn't marked by scandal or disgrace. It was slow, quiet, and deeply human. A man who once beat the game on his terms simply walked away, only for life to intervene before he could write a second act. In the end, he was a supernova who dimmed gradually, then vanished completely. His story reminds us that poker legends, no matter how disciplined, are still mortal.
He called me with a jack high. He called me with a jack high.
He called you with Jack High. If you watched ESPN's coverage of the World Series of Poker in the mid-2000s, that line is burned into your memory. The man behind it, Alex Powers, was unlike anyone else on the table. Dreadlocked, animated, constantly talking, constantly needling. In the 2004 $5,000 limit hold'em event, Powers didn't just play poker, he performed it. That day, he finished in 7th place, earning just over $40,000. It was the biggest score of his life. For a brief moment, he was poker's most unforgettable character. And then, he vanished. Alex's backstory wasn't your typical Vegas narrative. Before poker, he battled homelessness and addiction. He spent years living on the streets of California, addicted to crack cocaine. But those who knew him said that when he was sober, he was a genius, comparing him to Stu Ungar for his uncanny ability to read opponents. That talent finally earned him a shot in 2004. A backer put him into small Los Angeles tournaments, which led to his World Series breakout. But like many tragic figures, Alex's rise was short-lived. The winnings didn't last. Friends said he gave the money away, gambled it away, or it disappeared into the vortex of addiction and old debts. Within weeks, he was broke again. The ESPN cameras moved on, so did the poker world, and Alex Powers quietly returned to a life that poker had only temporarily interrupted. Over the next few years, Powers drifted into obscurity. He lived in parks, slept on couches, and at one point resided in a van until it was towed due to unpaid parking tickets. A small documentary was made about his life, but it never gained widespread attention. His favorite format, limit hold'em, faded in popularity, leaving him stranded in a new poker era he couldn't adapt to. By the 2010s, even those inside the game weren't sure if he was still alive, but he was, barely. A friend in Arizona took him in, offering shelter as Powers battled declining health. He needed a cane to walk and suffered from serious digestive issues. He talked about making one last trip to the World Series, one final attempt at redemption, but his body wouldn't allow it. On September 11th, 2015, Alex Powers died in his sleep. He was 62 years old. The cause was an undiagnosed heart condition. His death didn't make headlines. There were no tributes on the major poker news sites, just a few murmurs online, and that infamous Jack High clip still floating around YouTube as if frozen in time. Jim McManus, who clashed with Powers during that ESPN broadcast, later offered a touching eulogy. The endlessly replayed clash between us is probably the low light of my poker career and the highlight of his. Alex Powers was a good man who deserved many more days in the sun. His disappearance wasn't dramatic. It was gradual, quiet, and deeply tragic. From the spotlight of ESPN to the shadows of poverty and illness, Alex's story is a haunting reminder of how fast poker fame can fade and how rarely it comes back. At just 16 years old, Josh Field had already become infamous in the world of online poker. Under the screen name JJ Prodigy, he was a teenage phenomenon, a high schooler by day and high-stakes tournament crusher by night. But what made him famous wasn't just his talent, it was the scandal that came with it. In February of 2006, JJ Prodigy pulled off one of online poker's most notorious cheats. He entered a $500,000 guaranteed party poker tournament using not one, but two accounts. When his primary account busted, he simply switched over to a second one, registered under his grandmother's name, and won the whole thing, taking home nearly $140,000. He even bragged about it in the tournament chat. Party Poker responded immediately. They confiscated the winnings, banned Josh for life, and issued one of the first public statements about online poker cheating. The community exploded. JJ Prodigy was dragged across forums, news outlets, even ESPN, but instead of disappearing, he doubled down. Over the next few years, Field stayed in the game, using fake identities to keep playing. He racked up huge scores on PokerStars under names like Givotti TLT and Whitefish 77. Behind the scenes, he admitted to entering major tournaments with as many as 6 accounts at once, sometimes playing against himself at final tables. His operation became a cat-and-mouse game with poker sites, and for a while, he kept winning. Eventually, PokerStars and others had enough. Not only did they ban Field again, but they also banned several of his friends who were helping him move money and conceal his identity. It was a scorched earth policy. If you were associated with JJ Prodigy, you were out. Caught and cornered, Field issued a public apology, then another, and another. He promised to reform. He said he had given up multi-accounting for good, but each time, he was caught cheating again within months. The poker community, once willing to forgive, now mocked him. His name became synonymous with deception. By the end of 2008, JJ Prodigy had become persona non grata. He was banned from all major online sites and blacklisted from live tournaments like the PokerStars Caribbean Adventure. Even if he showed up at a table, everyone knew who he was, and no one wanted to be associated. Since then, he's vanished from the mainstream poker world. There are whispers that he still plays on unregulated sites or private apps under new aliases, but no one knows for sure. Josh Field went from prodigy to pariah and eventually to ghost. His disappearance wasn't sudden. It wasn't tragic in the traditional sense. It was a slow erasure, brought on not by bad luck or addiction, but by his own choices. JJ Prodigy didn't just vanish, he deleted himself, one banned account at a time. In the golden age of online poker, when nosebleed games were the wild frontier of the internet, one name struck quiet fear into the hearts of opponents: Trex313. Behind that moniker was Hac Dang, one half of the legendary Vietnamese-American duo known as the Dang Brothers. Alongside his brother D, known as Urindangja, Hac routinely played at the highest stakes on full-tilt poker, sometimes facing off against legends like Phil Ivey and Tom Dwan with blinds as high as $500 and $1,000. They were elite, methodical, ruthless, and they crushed. By the time the dust settled, Hac Dang had reportedly earned over $8 million in online winnings. The brothers were models of bankroll management and work ethic, rare traits in a world driven by ego and variance. Railbirds admired them, opponents respected them, and the community viewed them as quiet assassins in a world of loud personalities. Then, on April 15, 2011, everything changed. Known as Black Friday, the US Department of Justice shut down full-tilt poker and other major sites, freezing player funds and collapsing the online poker economy in the United States overnight. For American-based pros like the Dang brothers, the options were simple: move abroad and keep playing or find another path. Hac and D chose the latter. In 2012, Hac announced his retirement from professional poker. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't dramatic, it was simply logical. He said that poker had been good to them, but it wasn't something they wanted to do forever. They had made enough money to achieve financial freedom, and now it was time for something new. Unlike so many others who left poker, Hac Dang never came back. He and his brother reinvested their winnings into real businesses. Most notably, they opened a successful Vietnamese Cajun restaurant in Virginia called Chasing Tails. They also got involved in entrepreneurship and community outreach, even buying a house worth over $1 million in cash for their extended family, so everyone could live together in comfort. While former peers went broke chasing down the game's next rush, the Dangs shifted to building a stable, long-term life. Hac rarely gives interviews. He's in his late 30s now, living a quiet life and managing his businesses. Every now and then, his name surfaces in poker retrospectives as one of the greats who left early. Some say he could have made tens of millions more, but Hac Dang has no regrets. His disappearance wasn't driven by ego or desperation, it was the product of clarity. He saw what poker could give, and also what it could take, so he left while he was ahead. Not just in dollars, but in peace of mind. No scandals, no breakdowns, just a clean, calculated fade into a better life. And if you thought these disappearances were wild, they're just the beginning. Because the game that made and broke these players, it's been chased, outlawed, and hunted by governments across the globe. The danger wasn't just in the cards, it was in the courts.